Okay, great. As far as I can see, we're now live. Um, so, um, First of all, welcome to the guys on board on this call, and hopefully also people watching this on the outside. This is the 180 Degrees Consulting Leadership Hangout. This is the second one ever in the history of our organization. What we're basically, what we are as an organization is we are the world's largest student consultancy, and we promote social impact by giving very, very affordable consulting services to socially conscious organizations. What we're doing here today is we want to talk about leadership, basically meaning that we want to invite very, very smart people to talk to us about their experience with leadership and basically a few tips and tricks and so on of what they've done in their past. And today we are here, first of all, with our guest, Henrik Gadegaard. Tell me if that's pronounced correctly, more or less, from PA Consulting. And we're going to be talking about feedback. And I'm going to have to quickly say why I wanted Henrik to talk about this topic. Henrik's been a friend of our organization, of our branch in Copenhagen, for quite a long time, and has been very, very, very supportive together with PA Consulting, helping out. And actually, about 1.5 years back, I was giving a presentation at 180 Degrees Consulting Copenhagen. And what basically happened is that Henrik came up to me after the presentation and said to me, "Would you like some feedback?" And I immediately thought, "Oh my God, what did I do wrong?" And Henrik just basically came up to me and said, "This was absolutely great. That wasn't, or what you would like to think about the next time is," I was talking about our organization in general, and he said, "Think about who's your audience, what they know about you already, and build on that in your presentation." And that helped me personally so much in all the presentations I've done ever since, and made me think about it a lot. So I found that super beneficial. And I noticed how incredibly beneficial feedback can be. And that's why I've asked Henrik to be here today. So Henrik, would you tell us basically who you are, what you do, and what PA Consulting does?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Nicholas. First of all, my name is Henrik Gadegaard. So I'd say, Nicholas, you had it spot on. A bit over 4 years. What I do mainly is I work vision. Primarily, I've been working with process optimization and project management within organizations that are doing large transformation services, financial sector, and now I've moved on to do a large procurement assignment in the public sector. And Nicholas, as you said, I have been a friend of 180 Degrees in Copenhagen, doing a lot of sessions with the consulting groups every semester in terms of how they can end up with solutions that are easily implementable for your clients.
Exactly, that's how I experienced it too. So because we try to make this podcast or tubecast mostly about leadership in general, and that's why I'm also taking something that I found very, very powerful to talk about today, very specifically about feedback. In very, very short, and I know you've also been on and off leading people, and you definitely led a lot of our consultants for a long time when it comes to training sessions and so on. Could you say what leadership is to you?
Yeah, let's give it a go. To me, leadership is about setting a direction and guiding people so they find their own path within the realms of the group. To me, a leader is someone who's able to get followers, but also contribute themselves. And I think leadership, to me, has nothing to do with seniority or your position within an organization or your title. And that is one of the big differences between leadership and management in my book, is that you lead and have followers. It's more of a social influence that a leader can impact on others, where you as a leader ensure to maximize the efforts of others in order to achieve a common goal for a group of people, I would say.
Okay, that's very well said. That's pretty cool insight. Now, actually, just to jump directly into the topic. Now, I'm just getting back to when you came up to me and said, "Nicholas, would you like some feedback?" The first thing I thought was, "Oh my God, what did I do wrong?" And that's what it wasn't about, basically. And I mean, I think from intuitively, people don't like feedback necessarily, especially when it's tough, because obviously there's something they did wrong. How do you go about giving feedback to people, and how do you approach it? Is it like the sandwich that everyone always tells you, or is it getting straight to the point, or how do you go about feedback?
I heard different questions in it. You asked me as well on my personal note. I would say to begin with, I actually like feedback, to get feedback, both where you get appraisals, but also what you referred to before, the tough stuff, where you are being pointed to rooms of improvement. You mentioned in the beginning that you're doing something wrong. That's not necessarily the way I would perceive it. I would more say, for instance, when I gave you feedback, it was not because you were doing it wrong. I saw that there was room for you to become even better. So it's kind of taking a spin, and it's been a formalized process where we're able to ask for feedback and also give feedback online. We have a formula for that, and we're actually we're being asked that if we can have 12 feedback forms every year. So I would say that I think feedback is very good, and also that when we had our feedback session, the most important thing I feel about it is that it's constructive and evidence-based. So for me, it was easier to approach you directly after your presentation, because you had it top of mind, and I could easily pinpoint some of the areas you just mentioned before. So you and I can have a dialogue on what I perceive and what I believe could be improved, and you could still then reflect upon that, being in the situation, so to say, at the same point. Whenever I'm being approached with feedback that is focused on room for improvement, to of course listen and take in what I believe is valuable, and then also arrange follow-up meetings with the person who's giving me the feedback over some period of time, in order to ensure that if we agree on an action plan, that he or she that's giving me feedback could actually see if I've done any improvement or where they think I'm developing.
Okay, so but you said before that it's important that it's constructive. What will you say is the difference between constructive and non-constructive feedback?
Several things. First of all, it has to be constructive, of course, and evidence-based and sincere. I would say that's the premise for giving feedback. Otherwise, a receiver will quickly notice if you're not being sincere when giving feedback. Also, I believe that it's important, in order to give constructive feedback, that if you give feedback, it's because you want to help the receiving part develop, and you're not giving feedback for, let's say, the sake of argument, or just because you feel like giving feedback. It's because you want to help the other individual improve their abilities, because you see potential, and I think that's very powerful as a way to do it. you mentioned before the sandwich, so to say, with the positive and the negative. And I think that goes into the whole thing about being sincere and constructive. Because if you're able to, if I'm in our feedback session, I can give you feedback on what I think you did well, and then I can point to the areas where I believe that you could develop. But is it necessary to go back and give some positive at the end? I'm not sure, because I've experienced people using positive, negative, positive, where they simply just restate what they said was positive before. So they're not really giving me anything new. And then that becomes, to me, a bit superficial. But I think it's very valuable to use the whole positive, negative, positive, because the whole premise of all communication is that you need to consider, take the receiver into consideration. So if I just go up to you and say, Nicholas, in terms of your presentation, I believe that you could do this and this and this better, then I'm not really putting you in a position where you're actually feeling able to listen to me, and I'm not really creating a setting that makes you as a receiver listen to the feedback. So if I want to give you some constructive feedback, I believe that the settings dictates how the feedback is being perceived, and thereby if it's successful. Okay. So by going up and think that this was very powerful, however, I believe this and this elevate you to a new level.
So basically it's not really about how exactly you go about it, it's more about the mindset of being, I want this person to improve, and I want them to become better, and I do it in a constructive way. It's not really about sandwich or double sandwich or positive, negative, or whatever.
No, I think that's spot on. Mm-hmm. I approach you and say, Nicholas, I can actually see that you have a talent for this, and I think you did this and this very well. However, to take you to the next level, I could improve here or here. That way create a setting where you're more positive in terms of listening to what I'm saying. Instead, if I just went up to you and say, Nicholas, you need to improve here and here. Mm-hmm. That kind of brings you down more than it pulls you up.
Yeah, definitely. I got the impression that a lot of people, when you do feedback with some people, because some people use it not really as this mindset, as you said before, of I want you to improve, but instead to I want to tell you what I don't like. Is that possibly the reason why some people are? Oh, I was probably back then also a little bit eerie of getting feedback now.
Yeah, I think it's a two-way street. First of all, it's the person who gives feedback. If they tell the receiving part how they would like them to appear, well, then we're kind of putting all people in one direction, or putting them in one group. I mean, we're all individuals, and we should all strive for that special individual thing that we can do better. So giving that individual feedback, it's much more powerful, and I can state how I perceive your presentation and then come with my recommendations. But at the end of the day, you're decided to when presenting, for instance. But the other way around, I think it's also important to be open for feedback. I've experienced several times when giving feedback that people then start to defend themselves and say, yeah, well, I did this because I was aiming at this and this. At that certain point in time, I would say feedback can be a dialogue, but it's never about defending why you did things. To me, it's much more powerful if you take in what's being said, have a think about it, turn it around, and then if there's any clarification you need, go back to the person giving you feedback and say, you know what, I've thought about what you said to me. Do you have 10 minutes just to walk through how I could improve? And then the starting point for the discussion might be where you start saying, this is what I would like to, this is my goal, hence I think some of your feedback is very relevant for me and I would like to incorporate that. Could you help me? So it's very much, it's important that it comes from both sides of the table, both giving the feedback and kind of create that setting, but also the receiving part needs to be open to receive the feedback.
So it sounds very much that it's kind of, I mean, I guess that's what I noticed, and I remember asking you about this afterwards, that, for example, PA and I guess other organizations too, for you, feedback is not, it's not really a tool, is it? It's more part of your culture, is that correct?
We're trying to incorporate it as part of the culture, and I think we're getting there, but it started out as a tool because we could do it online, and that was a very good way of trying to fast forward the process of going from tool to part of the way we work. And I think we're getting there fast, actually. I often try to, if I am working with colleagues, let's say on a workshop or a presentation, or might as well just be a meeting, ask, or not always, but I often try to ask before the meeting or the workshop and tell my colleagues, is it possible for you to give me feedback on this particular area? Because then that my colleague finds it much more easy to give me the feedback afterwards, because they can focus on that during the workshop as well. So I think it's rapidly becoming a part of our DNA, so to say, between colleagues.
Okay. Well, I know this is you are perfectly entitled to say no, I won't answer this question. But is there anything that you remember where you got feedback once and really remembered, wow, that really helped me a lot?
Where I received feedback?
Received, or maybe even somewhere where you gave someone feedback where it really was very, very impactful.
Yeah. I remember receiving feedback a couple of months ago. I was in our technology practice in Cambridge, UK, and giving training to a lot of new joiners within PA across ranks. And I was doing that together with a partner from one of our other practices. And during day 2, he gave me it was small tips and tricks in order to engage some of the more senior people, and that was powerful to me at that certain point in time. So I think small feedback or tips and tricks can also be a game changer for an individual, I think.
Okay, all right, cool. Now, I think we always say we're going to keep these things short. We said about 20 minutes, so we're getting very much to the end. I've been really looking forward to this, to the last question, because that's kind of one of the things I want to ask everyone that we get onto this talk. And because you've worked with so many of our consultants and so many of our clients too, and also obviously work with different businesses and organizations day to day. And I've really been looking forward to this because what do you think, and this is generally not feedback, not anything, what comes to your mind if I ask you, do you think the most important things that leaders in not-for-profits and socially conscious organizations can be doing better?
This is going to be a personal answer because this is something I believe is important to be as a leader, and that is the ability to inspire and engage people. And that goes for not-for-profit organizations as well, for-profit organizations as a consulting company. I believe the days where young people going out in organizations and just working for their paycheck, those days are over. So if you as a leader is not able to inspire people and engage people, then your organization will not thrive. especially not-for-profit organizations, you need to have another winning argument than paychecks, for instance, or health insurance, and I think that's the cause of the organization. And in order to promote that cause is the ability of the leader to inspire and engage, I think. And that kind of goes back to what I mentioned before with that leadership being the process of social influence, where you as a leader have to make an impact on others in order to ensure that you can maximize the effort of the individuals in the team that then moves towards a common goal. So inspire and engage, I would say.
Okay, that sounds very, very good. Especially for, I think, it's more important for us as an organization who work with a lot of not-for-profits, because a lot of not-for-profits don't have the incentives that big companies can give them. Even if paycheck were an incentive, they couldn't make a huge competitive thing. So, I'll definitely write that down. Inspire and engage. That sounds like a very good slogan for when you do your own management consultancy, Henrik. Okay, so
I think it is valuable for you as an organization as well. When you have people that are consultants and that wants to move into 180 degrees, they need to see that they're locally inspired and engaged, and therefore they want to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. That's definitely true. That's why I actually would love to move on to the people who actually work on the ground or work at 180, because we've got 5 of them here, if I counted correctly, and because I've been jumping to and fro with the questions, I've already got 100 questions built up in my head, but I would love to get the others to ask some stuff too. Does anyone here in the panel basically have a few questions for Henrik? Some things on, be it PA, his relation to 180, or especially feedback?
Yeah, I have a question. If you can hear me.
We can. Would you just say who you are first?
I can hear that.
Yeah, awesome. My name's Havish. I'm from the LSE branch of 180. And a big thing that 180 do is obviously we are students advising clients and obviously partners. Often we find ourselves in the situation where we may be dealing with people who are more experienced and knowledgeable than us. How would you recommend we give feedback to these people?
Hi, Havish. That is a good question. Like I said before, for instance, leadership is not about a title or a position. I think the same goes, in my book at least, for feedback. It to a large extent, it comes down to framing the wording. So if you say, give feedback where you phrase it that this is how you perceive a particular situation, you're kind of not giving the others a possibility to argue against you. Because I cannot argue with how you perceive, for instance, this web chat. So do you have a specific example of where you would like to give feedback?
It's more sort of a general thing. At the moment, we're a very new branch, but one of the problems we've come across is dealing with people just in general, whether they're consultants or clients, who are a lot more experienced than us in our field and perhaps don't take, not the feedback, but the solutions we give as seriously as we'd like.
Aha.
I think it would be more general just to say how to give feedback to people who are in some form, shape, or other higher in the hierarchy, basically, or people who are more experienced.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think a professional way to go about it is that if you, in your team, have noticed different areas of that you would like to give individuals or an organization feedback on, is to group it into 2 or 3 areas, and then invite for a meeting where the whole purpose is to get is to do a feedback session and then invite them to give you feedback because you would like to improve as an organization. And that's easy to frame because, like you said, you're a new organization at the LSH, and you could then at the same meeting give your feedback to that organization, and then just make sure that it's evidence-based and that it's very concrete. So you're not giving feedback that is, for a lack of a better word, I would say fluffy and not specific.
Okay, cool. Havish, did that answer the question?
Yeah, perfectly. Thank you very much.
Great, okay. Then I would move on to other questions from people.
I have one. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I can. Is it Veronica?
Yes, this is Veronica. Hi. Thank you for the good information. I was wondering, sometimes when we do more personal feedback, how do you handle when you get feedback that is actually contradictory? Someone will say, well, because we ask our consultants, so do you think we're doing the right things in the Stockholm branch? And we get a lot of differing answers. We should be doing more social stuff, or the board should be more engaged in the projects. And others say, well, the board's a little bit too engaged, and we really don't have time to focus on what's important in the projects. How do you handle that?
That to me is a lot of very, of course it's personal, but it's also in some aspect very general because you as an organization cannot please everyone. So going back to leadership, I would say, for instance, the board in Stockholm needs to agree on which direction are you setting, and then fine-tune that. I've had that in Copenhagen as well, where I've been responsible for the sessions where we have taught the consultants some of PA methodologies, and I've also gotten a lot of feedback saying, well, I would like more examples, and someone would like more theory, and some would like more war stories. So that again is then up to me to say, where do I think the right weight is between theory and practice. So first of all, I mean, I think you should come up with a trajectory of where you would like to go and how you as a board would like to be perceived in terms of being involved in the individual projects versus being on a higher level. And then, of course, you can also always fine-tune that.
Okay, I would actually like to follow up quickly on that to make it a little bit more general. So, Henrik, if you, for example, let's say you do certain presentation or something, and one, let's say, partner or colleague gives you one kind of feedback, and someone else gives you something a little bit contradicting. Let's say, I don't know, some very, very simple, someone says you talk too loud in presentations, and the other one says you don't talk loud enough. How do you then is there any way of going about that?
Yeah, I think there is, because if I would then kind of probe and ask, how does that make me, how am I perceived if I, for instance, talk too loud? I'm not sure that's ever going to be a case. But to take that example, I would then listen to the people and then ask them, well, instead of just saying that I speak too loud, how does that make you feel, for instance? And they could then elaborate on if it makes them feel insecure or that I'm pushing something on them, and then try to take that in, incorporate that. So instead of just having the first feedback, try to have an iteration with the person giving me feedback. And then, of course, I know that that's an area I need to be more aware of. So if I'm in a meeting room with just one or two, three other persons, I need to speak a bit lower. But it's in a big auditorium, I can speak up.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I would say we're going to take the last question, if there are any left. Okay, so I think you must have been incredibly clear so far. Great, then I would say, first of all, thank you so much, Henrik, for your time and helping us out here to also improve ourselves and allow people to use exactly the feedback method to improve as a leader or a member of an organization. We're hopefully going to be having a few more of these calls, and in the future about different kind of topics on leadership. If we're also going to publish this to YouTube, so if people stumble upon it, they can go to 180dc.org, check out what we do. So again, thank you so much for everyone for dropping in, especially Henrik. Now we're going to go offline and we're going to get some feedback from each other on how this call went, and then to hopefully do it better the next time. So if you're watching this from the outside, thank you very much. If you're in the inside of this call, just hang on for a second. Okay? Bye.